Number 2, Guatemala. I'm going to have a hard time saying Guatemala and Guatemalan without flubbing. So let's start a counter starting now. Our boy. Well, I don't know if he's my boy. I don't want to be associated. If I don't, could get assassinated. Jacobo Arbenz. Did I say Jacobo right? Is that how you say Jacobo? Is it Jacobo? Jacobo Arbenz. He was part Swedish, I believe. He is what he is. But he was a guy who came with some cash. Him and his wife, they used to call the socialist sorceress because she was always passing him books about progressive ideas. Heavens forbid a wife asks her husband to read. And he had to have been the best husband because he actually read the shit that she suggested. You know how many women are like in love with this guy right now that I've said that? All of them. So please read about him. You might fall in love with him a little deeper. I know I certainly did. He wasn't my kind of handsome, but he does have a weird Elon Muskian kind of look. Maybe it's a mixed thing. When you mix with European people, they all look like Elon Musk. But Arbenz also made the one mistake. Oops. Someone else did it again. He was asking for his resources. He was also a democratically elected president of Guatemala. So far, no Guatemalan mistakes, but I've only said it twice. So you can see I'm kind of avoiding it. I am smart. But he too was asking for his resources, this time from a little company called United Fruit. Do you know where the term Banana Republic comes from? It comes from countries under the thumb of Banana Republic. No, but is the clothing store technically a CIA front? I'm just asking questions. But O. Henry, a popular American writer, had coined the term Banana Republic for countries that were under the thumb of one United Fruit. And Guatemala was a place under the thumb of United Fruit. They owned about 70% of the land. The telephone lines were theirs. The subways. This is Guatemala. The railroads were theirs. They kind of had control of the entire country, and they treated the government kind of like The Sims. We put them where we want. We build the house bigger if we want, or smaller. Depends on how we're feeling, as long as they don't ask about the fucking resources. And he asked about the resources. And the problem with that is, as we learned with Mossadegh, no one likes when you ask about the resources. But here's the thing about that, and I have a theory about why a situation like Guatemala is so terrible. I think it's beyond the fact that it's just Guatemala, it affects us as well. There is a level of every fruit is always in season at all times. And I think because of that, Central American countries have been kind of pillaged for their resource of all year round sun, all year round fruit. If we just ate things when they were in season, maybe things like this wouldn't happen. Maybe United Fruit wouldn't have had the monopoly it had in the fruit industry, or is it produce? Produce, fruit, whatever. Where's my money? At the end of the day, or at the end, no, but maybe they wouldn't have had a monopoly on all these countries and force them to do things the way they wanted them to do. So Arbenz comes up with a radical idea. He doesn't nationalize United Fruit. He ain't got power like that. But what he does say is, we're going to get the land and redistribute it. And that's not fun for United Fruit, who owns 70% of the land. Now, you look into his ideology, people say he wasn't that far off from capitalism. He just believed that if you're going to modernize Guatemala, the way Mossadegh believe you're going to modernize Iran, it should be with your own money. You don't want foreign money. Foreign money comes with strings. It comes with attachments. Look at Africa right now. They're doing all these zero interest loans with China, but you think China's not sitting there looking for the deposits that have the minerals to build computer chips which they're highly good at? That's the whole point. They're not interested in developing Africa. They too want to get into the colonial business because they didn't really get to have their colonial time. Maybe that's what China's really upset about. They never got to be colonists the way the whites got to. And I think deep down, everyone kind of wants to be the one in power for a little bit. So maybe this is China's time to start getting some colonies in Africa. World history is only built on resources. If you look at it from a macro perspective, it's all about resources all the time. And in Guatemala, that's what it was about. The United Fruit Company, guess what? They have a law firm. And this law firm don't take kindly to this shit. They don't. They don't like people redistributing stuff that their clients own through shady, capitalistic ways, through shady corporate maneuvers. If their clients do it, it's legal as far as they're concerned. Can you guess which law firm? Do you want to guess which law firm? Do you want to play the game with me? It sounds a lot like Sullivan and Cromwell. Yes. They also represented United Fruit. So who do you think they called? Allen Dulles. And Allen was so happy to get the call because, truthfully speaking, he had just finished doing the Iranian overthrow and he was kind of bored. He needed a new project. You don't want to, when you do a hot album or a hot mixtape, you want to follow it up with something fire. Maybe not too soon, but Allen waited about a year. He was like, okay, I can get into it. It's been a year. I'm let the streets know I'm back. And he let the streets know he's back. So they start with the same old, same old. They do the propaganda campaign. This guy's a communist. He's fucking killing people. They don't go with homosexual. And I think it's because Arbenz had a smoking hot wife from what I hear. I never looked at the pictures because I like to treat people in these situations like ghosts of the past. So I can only focus on their actions. Then I go back and take a look at them. But if what I'm reading's right, his wife was fine. And you're not going to pull that shit off with him. All right? Like, there's women who are beards for gay dudes, but none of them are ever smoking hot. I've never seen a smoking hot beard. That's just me. That's just me. Throwing it out there, just saying. If you are a smoking hot beard that's married to a gay man, send in your photo. And we will judge it on This One in Darkness. We should have a contest. Maybe that's a bit, sexist a bit. We're judging hotness. But if you're a hot beard, how rare is that? Bobby, you better start drinking this whiskey, dog. Because when the CIA busts through the door and kill us both, you're going to want this. It will take the pain away. And it's a good thing we're drinking, because you know who drank a lot? Arbenz. Arbenz had a drinking problem. It was well known, but he had done everything he could to fight it. And he was doing pretty good. From all accounts, he was pretty sober. Wasn't fully sober, but he was doing all right. He wasn't, out there doing what the Shah was doing. He wasn't partying. He was really a man of the people. And that's a problem. But it's always weird in South American overthrows because you never really hear about a general they find. They always find some colonel because the colonel, I think, is easier to bribe because he was on the lowest rank. They don't have too many demands. The fact that they're getting the push in general makes them happy. They're just happy to be part of the team. They're just happy to be there. And our boy, Castillo Armas, was really happy to be there. Because where he was working in a furniture store in Honduras. Working in a furniture store, already tough. Working in a furniture store in Honduras. Yikes. That's a bit more inventories coming across the water as opposed to a truck, which I feel land might be a little faster because of railroads. So maybe you're up more on a trend and you can sell more. I don't know what the furniture market is in Honduras. There certainly are no rent centers there, I would believe. Is that elitist? Am I being a Dulles right now? Am I being a Dulles? Bobby, you tell me if I was being a Dulles, right? Okay. I don't want to be a Dulles. I'm I'm a good guy, dude. I'm like talking about this stuff. I'm shining a light on oppression. And I'm wearing a shirt and tie. You didn't compliment me on my tie. I tied it myself. Bobby, what did I tell you about the goddamn phone? But if you are a good looking beard, please reach out to us. We would like to know, do you exist? A hot smoking beard, man. Because they're really holding the government's secrets. So Arbenz has been in a situation where the CIA, they kind of play both sides. They go, hey, man, these people are trash. We appreciate you. We're into freedom and shit like that. Kind of, sort of. We don't confirm. But we talk to Mexico. They'll hold you. Yeah. We got a plane for you. Sweet. Meet us at the airport. Sounds good. Hey, before I go, can I give a speech? And just transmit that? Yeah, you can try, but you're not going to be able to. It's a fly. Oh, shit, man. That's how they're going to get us. It's a fly in the studio, bro. That's how the CIA is going to get us. They got bioengineered assassins. But serious business. They say, sure, you can give a speech, but odds are people won't hear it. But go ahead. Give it your best shot. Knock yourself out. We're not in any way going to stop you. We've already done that. So he does give a final address that most Guatemalans don't hear. But what the Guatemalans do remember is when he arrives to the airport, in front of press and his fellow people, they make him strip down to his underwear before he gets on the plane because they don't want him bringing around any cash with him. They don't want him to have money to start a new life that in the CIA's mind is the Guatemalans' money. But they can't have fruit, can't have land, but don't you steal their money. Though we've already been doing that. Don't you steal government documents showing how you were not really a communist and kind of a cool guy. Don't do that now. All right? And he strips down to his underwear, and there's pictures of this shit. We won't be posting them. I will not do that to Arbenz. He was a good man trying to do something right in a very corrupt place, in a very corrupt part of the country or the world, with the CIA down his back. Now you would think, okay, they exiled him to Mexico. That's not bad. It's beautiful sun. It's beautiful landscapes. Maybe he can start a whole new life there. Well, they told the Mexicans, don't make him feel, welcome now. So the Mexicans kind of pressure him to leave. He goes to Switzerland, home of his father. CIA tells Switzerland, hey, don't you make him feel welcome now. And they also pressure him to leave. He goes to Paris and they go, hey, France, hey, CIA here. Don't you make him feel welcomed. No problem, man. They pressure him to leave as well. Eventually, they settle on just letting him stay in Mexico. Because what's the harm in it? We've already demoralized him enough. But he was always on the CIA hit list for quite some time. They always wanted to get a shot at him. And some say he did. He died at 55 in Mexico City when, sadly, he was back on his old drinking problem. Maybe due to the PTSD of having to jump from country to country and being overthrown by the CIA. That might have something to do with it. But he jumped into a scalding hot bathtub. And I hate to break it to you, but when you're drunk, scalding hot. You're drunk, but you kind of know what scalding hot feels like. Little sus. Very sus. But we make no accusations here. We just make inferences. Allegedly's. Little funs that the CIA definitely took him out in the end. By this time, people were talking to Eisenhower like, Alan's a really cool guy. He throws some cool parties. He's banging his secretary. His secretary and his wife are pen pals. And they're still, trying to figure out how to make him happy. He seems charming enough, I can grab a beer with this guy, have a cigar, talk about books and stuff. He seems kind of all right, but don't you think he's getting a little crazy with the overthrowing of governments? Don't you think it's a little odd? And Ike, really turned a blind eye to it because Ike really thought, well, maybe it takes a strange genius to do stuff like this. Maybe you need to be that weird to run a place like the CIA. But by that time, the Dulles already had their fingers in them, their hands fully up his ass, playing him like a puppet. Nikita Khrushchev, Russian leader, he noticed one time at a conference Ike was listening. Not aloof, but he was listening, but not really listening. Kind of half aloof, half like waiting for instructions. And when a decision had to be made, John Foster Dulles was there to slide him a paper going, you're going to say this, and this is what we're doing. Okay, John. And he would say it like a fucking puppet. So now, Alan's got 2 rings, 2 successful campaigns under his belt. He didn't get it the way he thought he'd get it. He would prefer to have hit the homosexual thing a bit more, but that Arbenz and his smoking hot beard, or his smoking hot wife. Once again, smoking hot beards. Reach out to us. TWEID show on Twitter. This will end in darkness on Instagram. We need to know if there are hot beards. But Alan knew he needed one more for the hat trick. And before we get into the hat trick, let's take a stroll down propaganda memory lane with this newsreel.
Peace comes to Guatemala. For the first time in 10 years, the people of Guatemala are breathing the sweet air of liberty. Only days after the resignation of Red President Jacobo Arbenz, rebel leader Castillo Armas sweeps into town. Thousands of communists and fellow travelers are rounded up in makeshift prisons.
He murdered all of them, Castillo.
For United Fruit, it's business as usual,
of course,
as all company land seized by the communists is returned. On television, Secretary of State Dulles announces the return of democracy to Guatemala.
The future of Guatemala lies at the disposal of the Guatemalan people themselves. It lies also at the disposal of leaders loyal to Guatemala who have not treasonably become the agents of an alien despotism which sought to use Guatemala for its own evil ends. The events of recent months and days add a new and glorious chapter to the already great tradition of the American states.
Since then, or since at least till the 80s, there were like 6 other guys in charge of that country after Armas. So I guess the overthrow didn't take.